Ken Morrison has been teaching and leading with educational technology internationally since 2009. Through his experience teaching at universities, K-12 international schools and corporate trainings, he has a unique blend of theory, practice, and practical tips to help teachers transform classrooms. Ken has been an active Apple Distinguished Educator since 2013, often presenting at regional and global Apple educational events. He was also part of Google's first Google Champions cohort and Synopsium in 2023. Ken has taught primarily in Heinam University and Busan Foreign Schools in South Korea, as well as Raffles American Schools in Malaysia as a computer science teacher, ICT teacher, new media professor, digital learning coach, and technology integration specialist. He is currently transitioning into a new role of instructional coach, TETC. Together, let's welcome Ken Morrison.
You're still mute.
Hi, Rotimi. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Excellent. And you cannot see my screen yet, can you?
I
can see
can
my
see.
video?
Yeah, I can see your screen, but it's yeah, I can see your screen. I can see the keynote. Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Excellent. So I'm going to mostly present from there. And feel free to unmute if there's questions in the chats, because I may not see that. Are you here for the whole time, Mr. Rotimi?
Yes, I'll be here.
Okay, great.
I'll be here. I'll get
Excellent.
off the screen so that you can be the focus, but
Great.
I'll be
Well,
in
I'm
the
happy
call.
to have you here. Yeah, I'm happy to have you here. I was just going to say that you or anyone else can use your voice and unmute at any time if you want to, if there's anything in the chat that or would like me to repeat. So as
Yeah,
a question behind that question.
Yeah, EDK will handle that while I just
Excellent.
get some setup done. All right, you
All right.
can go ahead. Yeah.
Sure. All right. Thank you, EDK, and thank you, Rotimi. So yes, I am actually going to start with a very quick audio. I just made a really quick, kind of cheesy audio with Suno. Maybe put in the chat box if you are aware of Suno. It is extremely easy to make AI music. All right, that is made by Suno AI. If you're not aware of that tool, it's quite amazing tool. If you spend more time with it, you can really tweak the audio. And what I do, how I use that tool, I don't use it that much actually in the classroom beyond sharing with students what it can do. But what I do is some of those emails, some that are sometimes just disregarded by students, sometimes I just take the time to make a cute little, sometimes cheesy song. And it's amazing how much they'll actually listen to a 2-minute song when they may or may not read a 20-second email. So I've had a lot of success and a lot of fun with Suno AI. And it's amazing how good it actually is. So I just wanted to share that at the beginning. We've had a wonderful day already. Congratulations to the organizers of this event, and I'm very happy to be here as well. And I'm going to be moving between a few different apps and a few different websites and my keynote. Apple Keynote that I'll be using. But what we're going to be doing today is the teacher in me does want to share some big picture thinking instead of just only focusing on the tools, trends, and how I use it. And we are going to talk about some time-saving tips and some transformational teaching moments to have you imagine some possibilities. So those are the core things that we're going to focus on today, mostly saving time and some transformative teaching opportunities. First, a little bit about me. This is my home. And I've been sharing this picture for about 15, 16 years in Asia. And I share this and I joke with the students. It's kind of becoming an old joke, but I started saying that some people think that it looks like the old Microsoft Windows screensaver that some of us grew up on, and some of it's before you were born. It is Nebraska. Nebraska is a really beautiful place. We have two nice cities. Omaha is an absolutely wonderful city, and a lot of it is rural countryside. I grew up in the country, and Nebraska is right in the middle. It is right in the middle is Nebraska. I'm extremely lucky. I grew up in a town called Howells, and it's not on a lot of maps, or it's not on any national map, and it's not on some state maps. It's classified as a village, not a town. And I'm extremely lucky. We had one wonderful teacher who knew a lot about computers, but she was the first to admit that she didn't know everything. She gave up her one planning period. She is our librarian and math and calculus teacher. She was busy, but she gave up her one planning period because she saw how much I like computers and she wanted to help me. And I'm just extremely grateful for that wonderful teacher. So I am lucky, and she got me to become very curious and interested about computers and the world around computers. And I'm also lucky because when I moved to Asia and I started teaching at a university there, I used to teach media and communication courses, mass communication and media. I started with one school computer and one personal computer. But what I was able to help our students do had actually won me some awards by Apple, and I solely became an Apple Distinguished Educator in the year 2013. And since then, I've been able to connect from wonderful educators all over the world and just learn wonderful things from employees at Apple and teachers around the world, and I've been able to present several times as well. So I consider myself very lucky. I absolutely love. One of my favorite things to do is during the summer, present about what some of my students are doing. So that's what I absolutely that really fills my bucket. That's what I love to do. I've been able to do that for students at each of the institutions that I taught at. And again, I started with one computer and then my personal computer. And I was slowly able to get more and more computers. And then eventually at my university, we were able to get a nice computer when the university a nice camcorder, a nice small TV camera when the university started seeing what my students were doing to help improve the image of our wonderful school. It was a wonderful school, and we went and we collected the stories. So we worked on storytelling to make international students want to come to our school. And again, I love showing what our students are doing and presenting on the big screen at Apple education events and sharing what's working. And I'm all about collaboration. So there I am with Dr. Aiko Otani from Japan, talking about our students connecting with the media that they're creating at different universities. And then that spirit of collaboration led me to become a Google champion. I was at our first Google champion symposium that Google offered last year. So I'm officially a Google certified innovator as well. Real quick about my bias in the chat group, just call me Ken. My biases is most of my life was spent in the United States. I spent about 10 years in Korea, and I've been in Malaysia for six years. So that is my background, and I love learning about other places. This is my main philosophy in a nutshell. I've started many presentations with this phrase. Is many people think, oh, we need the newest tools and we need that great teachers should find ways to make classes exciting. That's fine if it flows that way, but I think that the goal of great teachers should not be to make classes more exciting. I think the goal of great teachers should be to make students more curious, because I think that curious students is what makes school classrooms more exciting. And I think Gemini and AI are an absolutely wonderful opportunity to make students curious. I think we're at a magical moment in history of where students and teachers are equally curious and lots of opportunities. So as I stated, I'm very lucky I started with one school computer and one personal computer. So that's about me. Let's move on to my main presentation as I look at our time. Perfect. So that was about 5 minutes. And next, I would like to talk about saving time and transformation. But before that, I want to share a little bit about big picture. I shared my main philosophy in a quick nugget, and I want to share some other things to maybe consider. In the back of our mind, maybe the front of our mind, all of us are concerned about plagiarism or students possibly being unethical or not knowing where that sometimes gray line is between cheating and doing their own work, or just it's a gray area and students are trying to figure it out, or just missing foundational pieces of their educational background by taking shortcuts. Some friends at an Apple event in Hong Kong this past November, Alex, Mr. Alex EdTech, you can find him on Twitter X, and I was at the table that the guys created this as a takeaway from our session, and this is a wonderful framework, and we have posters around our school of this. So I think this is wonderful, that students need to be transparent about how they're using it, ask permission in advance. They need to be checking for accuracy. They need to be able to tell any teacher about their process of how they used AI and their thinking process around using AI at any time in the middle or at the end of an event or of turning in a project. And it is the student's responsibility, and of course the teacher's responsibility, to get clear on the expectations. And I make sure that my students know that my expectations may be very different from the teacher right before and right after me during a regular school day. I'm going to check the chat very, very quickly just to make sure. Can you give me some feedback? I'm assuming that you can still hear me and you could see my screen. Is everything okay? Okay, wonderful. And again, feel free to use your voice if needed. I think it's Holly Clark. I'm not positive. Maybe she shared it from somebody else, but I love the idea that using AI, the prompting can be extremely valuable. If I made this with Ideogram, the website, and I like the idea of the students maybe making a sticky note or writing a note. If there's an absolute genius on the other side of the door that had most of the answers in life, but that genius could not talk to them, they had to write it down on a piece of paper and in a way that the genius was clear on what they wanted, and the genius would write it down and slide it under the door crack. That's actually something that I enjoy doing with students, to have them practice writing their prompts if they don't have an AI engine, or even if they do. I think it's just a good practice. So I like that as a big picture idea of pretending that there's someone very, very smart on the other side of a door, but they won't talk to you. They won't come in the classroom. You have to write it down on paper first, and then they will answer your question. That forces students to get real clear on what they're asking. Many of you are familiar with the SAMR model. It's been around for quite a while, probably 20 years, maybe longer than that. I might have a blind spot on how long it's been around. But a lot of teachers, a lot of students are using it as simple substitution, and I encourage us to use AI when you become comfortable for ways to be modifying what you're already doing, not simply finding quicker ways to make worksheets or the same thing that you've been doing for a long, long time. Of course, all of us will do that. Sometimes we'll use it as a quick substitution, and there's a lot of value in that sometimes, but be aiming for ways to redefine what you can do in your classroom with the help of AI. So I encourage us all to use SAMR so that AI is not simply the same as other ed tech possibilities that we've had in the past, the tools that have come and gone and really haven't picked up momentum, because some teachers or institutions or leaders were just a little bit nervous of it. Of course, we need to be cautious and critical of it, but I encourage for us to all find ways to use AI to redefine what is possible. So now to the meat and potatoes of my presentation. Let's talk about saving time and transformation. So first, let's focus on saving time. Before we do that, I want to share that most of what I do will work on most AI, generative AI tools. I know that there's been some great ones represented at this conference, and there will be others tomorrow. And all of you already have many in your digital backpack that you love. Hopefully, most of what I share you can use in any of your tools that you like. Feel free to reduce and reuse and expand and recycle any of these ideas. Most of what basically everything I share is somewhat inspired by somebody else. And so what I want to share with the time is I think that being efficient allows time for your personal goals, time for connecting with students, time for following curiosity, time for your health goals, and helps you avoid burnout if we can use these tools efficiently. And it takes time, but I think that true time saving really begins with thoughtful prompts. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time working with prompts today, but because there's an absolutely wonderful tool that Google shared, that they made it for Gemini, but it'll work with all the generative AI tools and their framework. There's other great frameworks as well. They say that you should focus on the persona of who you want the AI to act like, who you are, and what you want the AI, what type of assistant or manager, etc., or public customer, etc., or student that you want, or a parent that you want the AI to act like, or to view your work through that lens. Specific about the task you are asking it to do, as well as and then the context is maybe the bigger picture around the task, and then the format. Maybe it needs to be very formal. Maybe it would be strange to be formal if it's among very close colleagues, or maybe even a parent that if you taught 2 students in advance previously, maybe if you become super formal, they might start thinking it's a little bit strange that you changed your format. So they prescribe this framework for using it. And here's an example. It doesn't really fit educators, but I think you can work through it. It's telling Gemini AI, you are a Google Cloud program manager. That's a persona of what you want the AI to act like. Please draft an executive summary email. That's a task. Based on, and then you would write down the details about the relevant program docs, and then limit it to bullet points might be the format in this. And you can customize that, of course, for anything else. I'll see if I can share these slides at a later time with Mr. Rotimi. There might be a way that we can share these at another time, or you can reach out. I'll share my contact information at the end as well. All right, so I'm going to give you 5 examples. I just shared the prompts, so I guess that's one of them. Email. Imagine the scenario. And I think I got this idea from Magic School, I think, from one of their training modules. Imagine you're a hardworking teacher in an elementary school, and you volunteer to help a sick teacher who cannot come in, so you cover their playground duty, but you have to go get into your classroom right away after that playground duty. A wonderful child falls down. You help her get to the nurse. She's crying. She's a little bit upset. Nobody pushed her. She didn't make a poor choice. She just fell down. You got her to the nurse. She's okay. You got her to her next class. She's okay. She didn't miss any major class, but there's a little bit of trauma, and there's a small little bruise. And of course, you're going to want to make sure that the parents know about exactly what happened, the context of what happened, the fact that she's okay, the fact that you went out of your way to make sure she's okay, physically and emotionally. You may or may not have time to write that beautiful email in the way that you would love to. I think that by using the prompt program, and I've done similar things in other contexts, you can use it to start. You can use any type of generative AI to get a start of an email that, of course, you're going to use your professional opinion and your personal style to make it better. But I have done things like that, and it'll do a really good job of drafting emails for us. Vocabulary. I will actually model what this looks like in Gemini. I'll leave here, and I'm going to go to Gemini. And please use your voice if you cannot see it. I'm not going to make a perfect prompt, but I'm going to say I'll do an okay job. I am a grade 4 teacher. My students will be reading Charlotte's Web. Maybe I'll say for the next 4 weeks or 5 weeks, however long. And I might say, please create a list of, maybe I'll put 50 vocabulary words that will help them understand the book. If I spent more time, maybe I'd get better results. If I said grade 2 or grade 5, it would give me different lists. I could talk about the percentage that is ESL students. I could make it better if I shared some of their WIDA scores or their other scores, what their Lexile number is. But this is kind of good, and I'll use my professional decision to decide which ones make more sense and which ones are needed. And maybe I know that they're going to know Barnyard, but Gander is going to be new. Gosling will be new. Spider, they'll know. They probably won't know Runt, Manure, etc. So this is pretty good. And what I like is, maybe this is from my past experience, that it's learning from how I do it, but I like that it groups them into different areas. In fact, I used to ask it to do it by chapter, and I don't know if it refuses to do it, but it strongly suggests that we do it by concept instead of by chapter. So that's an example of using it for creating vocabulary, and you can make it longer. You could tell the Lexile number so it has an idea of how strong your students are or what support they may need, etc. Maybe you can share the nationality and the background education of the students, and that can be helpful as well. Standards. You can do a pretty nice job with standards. Gemini and some of the other bigger generative AI models, they have studied, they did training on most of the major standards in the USA and Britain, and I think most other countries, but I can't say that I have tons of experience from other countries. But if you tell them what standards you are teaching in your class, and you say that you are teaching Charlotte's Web, and maybe you want to connect it with possibly science, and maybe you want them to make a small podcast or write about what would happen after the story ends, etc. You can tell the standards that you're trying to reach, and you can ask for different ideas for activities. And sometimes it'll even help you, moving on to the next part, it might help me find blind spots that I wouldn't know, or just some wonderful opportunities. So I highly encourage you to type in what standards you're using. I won't go long into it, but I'll go real quick. I'll say for this. Also, please treat it like a conversation. I don't have to retype everything. It's going to remember what I just did. So I'll say, for this unit, I am hoping to have students make short group podcasts, or maybe I would say presentations if I don't have a lot of technology, etc. And I might say, what suggestions might you have for differentiation? And it'll give me some. I did this test yesterday, and I've done it some similar with my older students in the past. I primarily taught secondary students in the past, but I've always popped into our elementary, and then I'm moving full-time to elementary next school year. So it'll give you some pretty good ideas. So asking for tips on differentiation, asking for tips on the standards that you're teaching, etc. And then for blind spots, actually, when I was working with Magic, when I say working with, when I was practicing on Magic School, is when I started straight up asking it for blind spots. And maybe I could say, I have never had students of this age create podcasts. What challenges might you expect that the students have? Maybe I'll say students face might be better English, something like that. I'm just giving quick examples here. I would craft it a little bit better. And it's going to tell me some of the challenges. Some of it's going to be conceptually. Some of it's going to be language, possibly. Oh, it didn't go into as detailed as often. But it might say technical difficulties. So that doesn't really tell me much. That's very, very surface level. So I'll say, can you give me specific examples of technical difficulties students might face. And I'm sure it'll give me at least 5 specific ideas. And if I would have said, we're doing it on a Mac, or we're doing it on a PC, or we're just going to write the script, we're not going to actually record it, it would be able to give me more. And it's still kind of generic, but I have gotten very good feedback. And so that would be a suggestion, is ask for blind spots before. Simply tell it, I've never taught this level, or I'm concerned of student motivation. How may I help them stay motivated? It'll give you about 5 ideas. Some are better than others, but I strongly encourage you to use those 4 or 5 tips for helping you save a little bit of time, because we've all been there. Every one of us teachers have been in that situation where we thought we planned out a wonderful lesson plan, and then we get to the point to halfway through it, and we're at the end of the 2nd lab out of 5 labs, and we realize there's some blind spot that we did not foresee, and the students are looking at you with total trust, but also total confusion. And if AI can help us learn from the masses of teachers who teach that level and that subject area, and that type of project, if we can learn something from others, I think it's a wonderful tool. So those are 5 things that I use generative AI for to save me time. And I learned recently in one of my PLN professional learning network groups on Twitter that one teacher actually used it not just for standards across planning 1 year of their lesson plan, but they're also able to do scaffolding and backwards design, of course, but also scaffolding for vertical alignment for 3 years, maybe as middle school years. I think he was able to align to the standards, and he was able to create a framework for the whole program. And then, of course, he uses professional opinion and experience to make it better. One thing I didn't say about Gmail, or obviously whatever email tool you use, is I used this last week. I actually used this with an email to Mr. Rotimi, is sometimes if I'm not positive, I might actually type in, I'll say, this is my role, this is the person's other role. How might this be received? Knowing that we're on different time frames, time zones last year, I wanted to make sure that I was clear the first time, so I didn't leave him with more questions and answers. And AI gave me really good response on how the tone, how it might be received, and some tips on how to make my email better. So I encourage you to do that. So here we are, talked about me, talked about the big picture, and a little bit about saving time. And we have roughly 20 minutes left, which is absolutely perfect. I'm excited about this next part, potential transformation transformation tips for your classroom. And I think that not all transformation, but a lot of transformation starts with connections with your students, connections with peers and teachers and parents in your classroom or in your school community, so that you have that trust to try new things. But for sure, you need that trust with your students. I think connection, especially with AI, also begins with transparency. I often admit to my students that I'm trying something new with AI, and I tell them that AI confuses me sometimes, and I hit roadblocks, and I have blind spots, and I feel like we are somewhat teammates. Of course, I'm the coach, I'm the leader of the classroom, but I do need their feedback, and I let them know when I'm trying something brand new, and when it's something that I was able to teach last year with AI. I choose to model curiosity for my students because I want them to be curious students. Much of the rest of today's presentation and before is simply me sharing my journey of exploring with AI and connecting with peers over these past few years. And I hope that I can connect with several of you as well. I'm going to give you a kind of a loose framework of my 2-year journey. I've read a lot of books about AI. I've always been interested in computers. Part of my role requires me to be curious and involved with upcoming technology. But when I didn't know the timing, and when it all hit us in November of 2022, I was about as surprised as a lot of teachers. And I think a lot of it starts with open discussion. I'll share a really quick story of a student. I've known her for 4 years. I've known her as an honest, hardworking student. Before I go too far in the story, I want us to all be extremely careful with plagiarism detectors, chat GPTs, or what was it called? GPT-0. I forgot the name of it. That was an okay band-aid when it all came out at the very beginning, but it is not reliable. And speaking quite clearly, it hurts students of a second language more than it hurts students of the first language. So I would never give someone a bad grade only because of a plagiarism detector. I could talk more about that, and I can talk later if you would like, outside of this group. But there's some experts that I fully agree with that strongly suggest that we need to be very careful of those plagiarism detectors. With that said, some students do copy paste, but we need to have open discussion. Back to my real quick story. The student, I've known her for 4 years. She's a wonderful young student. She turned in something that I honestly, I was nervous enough to that I did put it into GPT-0, if that's the name of it at that time. And my framework is I always talk to another teacher and just ask them what they think when they read it as well. So I talked to her. I said, I want you to know that this plagiarism detector thinks that 96% of it is made by AI. And I want to know how you feel. She shared very clearly that she did use, that she used translation tools, and that is what set it off a lot. So what I actually did is I took her work, which was most of her good ideas, but very eloquently written because of the different tools that she used. And I asked it to make a multiple choice test, just a 5-question multiple choice test. I asked her to take those questions on the spot. She was able to tell me 1, 2, 3, and 5, just like that, and expand more than she did in the writing. And then I said, okay, we can talk more if you're concerned. But it's clear that you learned what I asked, what I hoped that you would learn. And then I think we had a lab that day, or she finished other project early, the task of what we're doing. And then she was actually, I circled around at the end of the class just to make sure she knew I was openly talking about it, and I didn't want her to leave with hard feelings. And what she was doing is she was researching the one answer that she didn't know the answer, the one question of the AI generated multiple choice test, more of a discussion. And she wanted the answer because there was one vocabulary word in the question that she didn't understand. Then she sent me an email, like a very sincere email 2 days later, that she was so happy that I talked to her and didn't think that she's a cheater and that she learned from the situation. And she just wanted me to know that she took the class seriously and that she didn't mean to break any rules. I won that girl's trust 2 years later. I know that we can trust each other for anything academically, and it was just a tiny little, not even a bump on the road. So everything we do, I think we should include the students with our red flags that pop up. One thing I help lead student council at our school. And one thing that we have always done is, not always, but for the last 2 years, is we have our student council representatives go for one lunch a month, and some topic that they think might be on a lot of students' minds, they go around the cafeteria and they get tips. We knew that Mental Health Day was coming in October 10th. So near the end of September, we went around and we got, I don't remember how many, like more than 120 students, quick little pieces of advice about one tip that they have for staying mentally healthy. Keep in mind, this was in September 2023, which actually feels like a long time ago. So this is a bit of a simple example, but this is something that all of us can do. I used a image generator. I chose Canva. We do subscribe to Canva at our school. And what I did is I simply, almost all students and some teachers, I simply wrote down the one thing that they wrote down on the clipboard. And I took the time because I wanted to explore with Canva image AI at that time, image generators. And I created something to symbolize each one. And then with my grade 10 technology class, I asked them to help me improve it. We wanted appropriate age. We wanted appropriate nationalities that represented our school. For example, we had I asked our Muslim students to ask if the attire that AI generated was appropriate. If not, we changed it. And so we have several examples for both at home and school, etc. And we learned a whole bunch about how to write prompts that will get us the effects we want. And yes, we had a lot of laughs as well, especially at this stage of AI history, of the phantom extra hands, etc. But it really taught them to look at images twice before releasing it to the public. So I think this says approval, but I don't think that this is our final approved one. But we have posters hanging up all over our campus, even today, from this project. And we have really good student tips. My big frustration with myself is I wish I want to put this date, because some of the posters were removed because it looked like an old thing. But I think these are evergreen pieces of advice that can work at any time. So this is probably January of 2023. From January through May, I took a long course through a professor at Boston University, as well as sponsored by Apple. And we did action research with Mr. Machado and Dr. Casey Hammond at our campus. And that AI was new to us. So we decided to take an action research class, and we, which was met most weeks between January and May. And we surveyed all the students. We made a nice survey, and we got to know a lot about what our students were doing. So we had tons of data. Basically, we had 1 hour that we had all students take that survey. We had tons of data. And then I took one of my classes, and I helped them over a course of a couple weeks to manage the data. And then what we did is we used that data as well as what we were learning, and they actually made a website on their advice for other students. So it's student-made website for advice from other students. We didn't have time to make it absolutely beautiful. And keep in mind that this is a 1.5 years old, but these students did a really nice job of creating tips on when to use AI, when not to use AI. And that was a really fun tool where the teachers modeled that we wanted to learn. And then we helped the students analyze the data and to look for trends. And then actually at the end, I was able to present at an Apple conference about that whole process. So that was a really fun example that wouldn't have started if I wouldn't have simply signed up for a free class and hoping to learn and model that I'm curious about it. Another simple thing that any one of you can do is, I'm looking at my time, another simple thing that any of you can do is, you can do this for any type of character development. We call them GLOs. It stands for General Learning, I'm embarrassed or nervous or tired or one of the two. General Learning, I'm embarrassed, but we have goals we have 4 goals, and they're well worded and they're very meaningful. Quite honestly, they're probably originally written by adults and for adults, but we want all of our students to accept our general learning objectives and to take ownership of them. And so what I did is I had my grade 10 class, and then later I did it with grade 8 as well, as they use generative image AI we used Canva in this example, and I think we used another tool that I can share later at another point. And they took the GLO, and then they put it in their own words, and then they created a prompt to get AI to create a poster, kind of like the one I just shared before, but it shows that they understand the general learning objective and that they understand what it's about, and to create a visual to remind them of their goal within the GLO. So basically, it was a nice little circle of them deconstructing the GLO, putting it in their own words, creating a AI prompt that will create an image, redoing that prompt until it's something they actually like and has nationalities and a style that they're comfortable with, and then to make a poster and making sure that the wording is well, so that they're able to make a digital poster with that. So that was a really nice tool. It was free, didn't cost too much, it didn't cost a ton of time, and the students really got into it. I think it's very important to talk to the students about trends. Sometimes I taught technology classes, so it's a little bit easier for me, but I think during this time of history, I think almost all teachers should be spending some time every several weeks to actually kind of stop a little bit what they're doing and ask the students, what trends are you seeing? What obstacles do you have? What makes you nervous? What gray areas are you tempted by? What gray areas do you not know if your teachers are going to be upset? I think that if we're not talking to students, I think that we're missing an opportunity. So I just carve out time because I think it's important. I know students have questions, and I just feel like it's better to have, I think that they feel better after they have an opportunity to ask about those questions. And because of some of these projects I've been doing and learning from people all over the world and within my school, the teachers, the students, etc., I was able to make a book that we released to all students in our school. And we gave students more than an hour to look at it. or yeah, but they have access to it all the time. I'm going to show you just a little bit of that. I think, yeah, here it is. Part of this book, at the end of the book, is a website that I just showed you a little bit. And what I like about this is we interviewed real students, and we got their real opinions. We shared some frameworks of what teachers think about AI, some frameworks for how to think about when they're using AI correctly, a little bit of humor. I gave them some tips. A lot of this recorded my voice so that the students can hear my voice and my thinking beyond just asking them to read. I'm not sure if you hear that because I have my earphones in, but you hear my voice either reading this or giving more context. And in this book somewhere, I might have been a link to how they felt. Somewhere I shared students' opinions, and I got a hardworking, I don't want to label a student, a hardworking student that did great in some classes and okay in other classes, but every teacher saw them as hardworking, every student saw them as hardworking. And I did it, he shared his opinion anonymously, and he shared like 2 pages of how he feels when he sees his students cheat. And even though it was an anonymous student, he wrote it with enough passion that I think that the students who read it remembered it. I was able to celebrate some students that used AI creatively with the help of Mr. Machado the previous year. Let me scroll to the beginning. I was able to share what United Nations thinks about AI and their concerns, their 6 concerns. I won't read all of this, share all of this. I just shared my honest thoughts about it, and I just tried to model using AI to make a book. It's not quite ready to publish, but I hope to publish it in the next month or so. And then I made it in a way so that there's active buttons that they can skip around. And then I created a legend, and I made it in a way that students can start anywhere and learn a little bit. So that was a big task, and I wouldn't prescribe that just any teacher do that because it was a big task, but it's also part of my role is to help students and teachers get comfortable with AI, or to be more comfortable with AI. And so that was a big task that I'm quite proud of, but there's no way I could have done it on my own. I used Apple Pages to make that book, but Book Creator allows you to record your voice as well. And it doesn't have to be 85 pages like mine, it could be shorter. And I just encourage open dialogue, and that was my way to model curiosity and to wrap up my thinking based on what teachers and students had helped me form my thinking throughout the previous 18 months. So that is most of what I wanted to share today. It's 9:08, so I kind of either planned well or I got a little bit lucky. I haven't looked at the chat yet, so if there's questions in there, I'll be able to help it. Here's kind of my final words. You don't have to be an expert. The people that you may follow on Twitter, or the people in your school, they're all learning, and what they learned this week contradicts what they learned 4 weeks ago, but we just keep learning and connecting and trying to learn more. So your students don't expect you to be, and I have had a lot of luck simply sharing with the students that there's a lot that I don't know. And like other classes, if you're transparent about it and help guide them and show what you're learning along the path, I think you win students trust and respect, and show them that it's okay for them to ask you questions as well. So it's worked really well for me, and I'm excited to keep learning. This could be 5 pages long. I had to stop somewhere, so I made it super short. I love Google Applied Digital Skills, and they have a couple AI lessons for teachers that I encourage, and some good ones for students as well. I've prescribed the student one for students last year, and I've taken the teacher one. I think it's quite great. The Google AI Prompt Guide is the one that I showed you before. And 3 people, I'm actually going to hold up 2 of Rotimi's books. AI for Educators by Matt Miller. He wrote the Ditch That Textbook website. So this link will take you there. I'll try to share this in some way later, or you can reach out to me and I'll share it with you. Holly Clark is she's a global leader for education. I was lucky enough to learn with her Sorry, I was able to learn from her in Hong Kong for a couple days. And then Eric Kurtz is another absolute genius. So I encourage you to follow them. And I'm not quite ready to share these links because of my Wi-Fi skills, and it takes a while to transfer it into a Apple shared drive that I can share with everybody. But I will find a way to share it, or you can reach out to me. I heard a voice. If I can help somebody, I'd be happy to help you. But I will find a way to share it, or you can reach out to me. I heard a voice.
Okay, thank you, Ken. So for everyone, all of the resources that was that are used during the conference will be collected, and we'll have a link to have access to them. As we transition to another section, I want to ask if we have any question for Ken before he leaves us. Do we have any question? Do we have anything we'd like to bring up with him? Okay, do we have a question? Okay, so there are no questions. My camera. Okay.
I'm excited
Ken,
to learn from others next couple days.
Okay. All right. So Ken, thank you so much. It's great to have you with us. It's been wonderful having you around. Yeah. All right. If you can stop sharing your screen so that I can share mine.